He held onto my work glove like it was a life ring, and he wouldn't let go. Most mornings I'm out before the city really wakes up, driving a service van and fixing the stuff nobody thinks about. Storm drains, grates, pump boxes, whatever keeps water moving where it's supposed to. That morning in Spokane, the air still had that wet, cold smell from a night rain. The pavement looked darker than it should have, like it hadn't decided if it was going to dry. The call took me behind an old warehouse near a loading zone. Wind was pushing across the open lot, and the storm drain grate was rattling, a sharp metal sound that didn't match the quiet around it. Forklifts were starting up inside, the beeps and engine noise bouncing off the building. Somebody was already yelling about pallets. I walked over and saw him under the grate, pressed into this narrow pocket beside a pipe, like he'd folded himself into the only safe inch he could find. A tiny domestic shorthair, brown mackerel tabby, maybe 2 months old. His fur was clumped and damp. His eyes looked too big for his face, like they were doing all the work his body didn't have energy for. He made these little sounds that barely came out, like he didn't want to waste anything. Not breath, not noise. I crouched and tried to lift the grate. It didn't budge. The bolts looked like they'd been there forever, rusted in place. I tried again, shifting my weight, using the edge of my boot. Nothing. The kind of nothing that makes your stomach drop because it's not just metal. It's time. I could have called it in and waited. But I could already hear the forklifts getting closer, the day turning on. If I left him there, he'd be right under traffic and wheels and vibration. Even if nothing hit him, the next rush of water would send him back deeper. So I did the only thing I could think of. I slid my gloved hand through a gap and held it still, low and calm, like I wasn't asking for anything. His head turned toward me. He hesitated for half a second. Then he grabbed on with all 4 paws and pulled himself up, trembling so hard I felt it through the leather, like he decided my glove was the only solid thing in the world. I tried the bolts again with him hanging there, my arm awkward, my shoulder burning. Still stuck. The grate shook when the wind hit it, and he tightened his grip like he understood what that meant. Then I heard an engine rev close by, and the slow roll of a forklift heading straight toward the drain. I looked at the moving tires, then down at the kitten clinging to my glove, and I knew I was out of seconds. I didn't wait to see how close the forklift would get. I pulled my arm back fast, and the kitten slid with me, still latched onto the glove like he'd glued himself there. He made a tiny breathy sound, more air than voice, and I realized I couldn't get him out through the grate. So I settled him into the small pocket where the pipe met the concrete, the only spot that looked even a little sheltered. "Hey!" someone shouted. A man in a safety vest was walking toward me from the loading bay, palms out like I was about to steal something. "Don't touch that. That's their problem. We're not a shelter." I didn't argue. I just ran. My van was parked along the fence line. I yanked open the side door and grabbed the pry bar I kept for stubborn grates, plus a can of penetrating oil. My hands were clumsy from the cold and from the fact that my brain was running faster than my body. I could still hear the forklift backing up, the beeping, the regular routine of a place that didn't even know there was a kitten under its feet. When I got back, the manager was already reaching for a chain that hung near the cones, like he was going to close off the area for his own reasons. I dropped to my knees, sprayed the bolts, wedged the pry bar under the edge, and lifted. The grate rose, just enough to make me hopeful, then slipped. Metal slapped down hard. The sound echoed. The kitten flinched so violently he lost his footing and scooted deeper into the narrow pocket by the pipe. My stomach turned. Not because of the noise. Because it hit me, plain and simple. I was the one making this worse. I was the big creature above him, the shaking ground, the falling metal. I'd shown him a glove and he trusted it, and now I'd scared him back into the dark. I looked up at the manager. He was glaring, phone already in his hand like a weapon. I made a decision I wasn't supposed to make. I grabbed 2 cones from the side of the lot and set them out wider than I had any right to. Then I hooked the chain across. Not neatly, not officially, just enough to say, "Stop." I knew it wasn't my property. I knew I didn't have the paperwork. But I also knew that if a forklift rolled over that grate while he was under it, there wouldn't be a second chance. "You can't do that," the manager snapped. "I'm filing a complaint." Okay, I said, and my voice surprised me. Calm, almost flat. Do it. Just give me 1 minute. I went back to the bolts. The oil had started to work. Not much, but enough. I lifted again, slower this time, talking without really meaning to. Hey, hey, it's okay. I'm not leaving. The grate rose a couple inches. That was all. But it was space. I slid my gloved hand in, feeling for warm fur in the cold damp. The kitten found me first. He grabbed the glove again and started climbing, claws catching on leather, body shaking like a leaf. He got halfway up, and then his back paws slipped on the wet metal. For a split second, he dangled, and my heart did this awful, hollow drop. I caught him against my forearm, tucked him close to my sleeve, and eased him out into the open air. He froze in my hands like he couldn't believe light was real. His eyes blinked once, slow, and then he tightened his grip again. Not on the glove this time, on me. Behind us, the manager lifted his phone higher. I'm sending this to the city, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The kitten didn't let go of my glove for even a second. And suddenly I was standing there with a shaking, soaking wet kitten in my hands, a complaint hanging in the air, and a choice I hadn't planned for at all: hand him over by the book, or put him in my van and take responsibility for whatever came next. I didn't have a plan. I just knew I couldn't stand there arguing while he shook in my hands. I carried him to the van like he was something fragile I'd borrowed and already felt responsible for. He stayed glued to my glove until I climbed into the cab. Only then did he loosen one paw, then the other, and stare at me like he was trying to decide if I'd changed my mind. I found an empty filter box in the back, clean enough, sturdy, and laid a fresh shop rag inside. When I set him down, he didn't bolt. He just crouched low, shoulders tight, tail tucked, eyes tracking every movement. I slid a small cup of water toward him. He leaned forward, sniffed, then looked up at me instead of drinking, like water was a trick people used. The heater was on full blast. The windshield started to fog around the edges. In that warm hum, he finally made a sound that was actually a sound, a tiny, rough little mew, like it surprised him too. I called the nearest vet clinic with one hand while I kept my other hand resting on the seat, open, not reaching. The receptionist was kind but blunt. No appointments until midday. If it's an emergency, you can come wait, but it's going to be a while. I called again, another place. Same story. I tried a general intake line for a shelter and got a calm voice telling me to leave a message and someone would get back to me. I stared at the kitten in the box and felt this hot, stupid fear rise up in my chest. If I handed him off to a voicemail, he'd become a number, a form, a we'll see. And I couldn't shake the feeling that he'd simply vanish again, swallowed by the system the way he'd been swallowed by that drain. My work phone buzzed. Dispatch. "Where are you?" the dispatcher asked. No greeting. Just pressure. "You're behind. I need you back en route." I said something vague. I hated how small my voice sounded. I stared at the complaint that was probably already traveling through someone's inbox, and then at this kitten, wet fur, wide eyes, barely holding himself together. And then I remembered home. My border collie mix has opinions about everything, especially about my attention. He's not mean, not in a simple way, but he notices shifts. He clocks new smells, new energy, new anything. The last thing I needed was to walk in with a tiny stranger and hope it all worked out. I heard myself say, out loud in the empty cab, "I'll just get you to the clinic. That's it." Even as I said it, I knew I was lying. The kitten reached one paw out of the box and hooked my sleeve, just a light catch in the fabric. Not pulling hard, just anchoring, like he was making sure I didn't disappear. I stopped at a pharmacy because my brain needed something practical to do. I bought kitten milk replacement, a disposable litter tray, a small carrier, and the tiniest soft blanket I could find. The cashier didn't ask questions. I was grateful for that. Back in the van, everything looked too real, too prepared, like a decision had already been made without my permission. When I opened the carrier and set it beside the box, I expected him to shrink back. Instead, he leaned forward, and he took one careful step toward me. He took that careful step toward me, and I didn't move. I just let him decide what the distance was going to be. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the light outside had that dull, late-morning look. Clouds sitting low, everything still damp. My dog heard the van before I even shut the door. His nails clicked fast across the floor, and then he was at the window, head high, eyes locked, already reading my body like a weather report. I brought the carrier in first. I didn't let it swing. I held it close to my chest like that would keep everything calmer. In the bathroom, I set up what I kept thinking of as a neutral zone. A warm towel on the floor, a small bowl, the light dimmed, no loud fan, no running water, just quiet. I wanted the room to feel like nothing was about to happen, even though everything was. My dog paced outside the bathroom door, sniffing under the crack. His tail wasn't wagging. It wasn't stiff like a warning either. It was focused, like he was trying to solve a problem. I clipped his leash on anyway, not because I didn't trust him, because I didn't trust the moment. I opened the carrier and stepped back. The kitten didn't rush out. He eased forward low to the ground, shoulders tight like he'd learned that being small was safer. He didn't hiss, he didn't spit. He just froze in the doorway and stared at my dog with those huge eyes. For some reason, that scared me more. A kitten should puff up, make noise, do something. This one looked like he was too tired to argue with the world. I kept my voice down without even thinking. Easy, I told my dog. Just easy. My dog leaned forward, nose working, and then no bark, no sudden move. He sat. Like he decided sitting was the best way to show he wasn't a threat. The kitten blinked once, then he shifted his weight and took one tiny step onto the towel. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until it left me all at once. And then my phone rang. I looked at the screen and my stomach tightened. The manager from the warehouse. I answered because ignoring it wouldn't make it go away. He didn't bother with hello. He demanded my name, my department, my supervisor. He said my cones and chain had cost them time and that there would be a report. He said it like he was proud of it. I stared at the kitten. He had one paw lifted, like he wasn't sure the floor was still going to be there. He turned his head toward my voice, not startled, just alert, taking it in, filing it away. I kept the call short. I gave the basic info. I didn't apologize. I couldn't. When I hung up, the bathroom felt smaller, not because of the kitten, because of what the call meant. If work decided I'd crossed a line, I could lose my stability fast. And if I lost that, I didn't even want to finish the thought. Vet visits, supplies, time, all the things this little life was going to quietly require. My old fear showed up like it always does. Not fear of him, fear of me. Fear that I'd let myself get attached and then end up handling everything alone again, like I always had. The kitten moved just a little. He reached out and tapped the edge of my shoe with his paw, then pulled back like he'd done something bold. I left them both there, kitten on the towel, dog sitting steady by my leg, and I closed the bathroom door partway, not locked, just enough to give the kitten a boundary that was his. That night, long after the house had gone still, I heard it. A soft, careful scratching on the bathroom door. Not frantic, not loud, just a small sound, like someone asking permission to exist. I stood in the dark hallway with my hand on the knob, trying to decide what kind of person I was going to be. I turned the knob, opened the bathroom door, and sat down on the tile like I belonged there. I didn't reach for him. I just stayed low, hands in my lap, letting the quiet do the work. The kitten slipped out from the towel and immediately ducked under the vanity. Not gone, just tucked away. I could see his eyes in the shadow, watching every inch of me. I slid the bowl a little closer, then leaned back against the wall and looked away on purpose. After a long minute, he inched forward, one paw, then another, a tiny step that felt like a whole mile. In the morning, I wrapped him in a soft towel and carried him to the van. He didn't fight. He just trembled and kept his face pressed into the fold like he didn't want to see the world yet. At the clinic, they were gentle and direct. The plan was simple: warmth, steady food, calm. No drama, just consistency. They mentioned the standard option: intake, foster system, we'll call you. It was the responsible answer on paper. I nodded like I understood, but all I could see was him under that grate, holding my glove like it was the last solid thing he had. I asked for the temporary foster paperwork instead. Even as I signed, I told myself it was just for recovery, just until he was stable, just until someone more official took over. My own voice sounded thin. On the drive home, my phone buzzed with an email. A complaint had been filed. I was scheduled to meet with my supervisor. Back at the house, the kitten surprised me. He spotted the drawstring on my hoodie and batted at it. Slow at first, then with this sudden little burst of focus, like play had been waiting somewhere inside him, just behind the fear. My dog lay down a few feet away, not crowding him, just watching like a quiet security guard. The kitten glanced at him, then went right back to the string. I stood there with that email still open on my phone, watching this tiny creature choose life in front of me, and it hit hard. Tomorrow, one meeting could decide how long I'd be allowed to keep choosing him back. The next morning, I went in early before the shop got loud. I had the foster paperwork folded in my jacket pocket like it was something fragile. I didn't even know why I brought it. Maybe I thought a piece of paper could explain a moment that didn't fit inside policy. My supervisor's office smelled like coffee and printer toner. The blinds were half down, throwing lines across the desk. He didn't waste time. "You blocked off a loading area without clearance," he said, voice flat. "You created risk. You can't do that." I nodded, because he wasn't wrong. Not on paper. He slid the complaint across the desk like it was proof of something ugly in me. I read it, even though I already knew what it would say. The words were clean. Official. The kind of language that makes you feel small without raising its voice. And sitting there, I felt this wave of recognition more than guilt. I've built my whole adult life around doing things the right way so nothing can come back on me. Stay inside the lines. Don't make noise. Don't get pulled into situations you can't control. I'd done that with people too. I'd kept relationships neat, careful, slightly distant. Like if I never stepped all the way in, nothing could really hurt. I didn't tell anyone that in the office. I just sat there and realized this tiny kitten had already made me step over a line I'd been guarding for years. My supervisor leaned back. "Here's the compromise," he said. "You take the write-up, and you keep anything personal out of the job. That means you turn the animal over to the appropriate channels. No more stories, no more distractions." He didn't say it like an order from the law. He said it like a clean solution to a messy problem. Remove the variable. Remove the thing that makes you vulnerable. I heard myself say, okay, the word came out before my heart caught up. I walked out with the write-up, the folded paperwork still in my pocket, and this strange, numb calm that felt like giving up. On the drive home, I kept telling myself it was the responsible thing, that he'd be fine, that there were systems for this, that my job mattered, that stability mattered. But when I opened my front door, the house didn't feel like relief. It felt like a test. The kitten was in the bathroom doorway now, not under the vanity. He watched me come in, then padded out onto the rug in the hallway. Slow. Stop. Slow again. Like each step had to be approved by some part of him that still didn't trust the floor. My dog stayed back, laying down like he'd learned the rules too. I sat on the carpet without thinking. The kitten came closer, paused, then reached out and placed one paw on my hand. Light pressure. Warm. The same quiet grip he'd had on my glove, just without the panic. I didn't move. I just stared at his paw on my skin and felt something in my chest shift, like a lock turning. I took out my phone. I pulled up the number I'd been given. My thumb hovered over the call button, and I couldn't press it. I set the phone down like it was hot. For a long minute, I just sat there on the rug with his paw still resting on my hand. Not gripping, just touching. Like he was saying quietly, "Don't disappear on me now." And I realized I was the one who'd been disappearing for years. Always half in, half out, always choosing the safest version of myself. The next morning, I drove back to the clinic instead of calling any intake line. I brought the kitten in his carrier, but he wasn't pressed into the back corner anymore. He sat facing the door, eyes wide, watching everything. When a metal chair scraped in the waiting area, he flinched. His whole body tightened, but then he looked up at me, checking. I rested my fingers on the carrier handle, and he settled again. I asked for a final check and for advice that would keep everything clean. No gray areas. Vaccines, microchip, paperwork, whatever it took so nobody could say I was doing something shady or emotional or unofficial. The tech gave me a couple local foster network contacts and explained the steps like it was normal. That helped more than I expected. I wasn't trying to be a hero. I was trying to be someone who didn't hide behind temporary anymore. At home, I changed the space like I meant it. I put secure screens in the windows and cleared a calm corner where he could retreat without vanishing. I built him a simple highway out of shelves and a cat tree I already had in storage, places up high where he could watch the room and feel in control. He used it right away. He climbed, paused, then climbed again, testing each surface with his paws like he was learning the shape of safety. When my keys jingled, he startled, but instead of bolting under the vanity, he froze on a shelf and locked eyes with me, waiting for the world to make sense again. The dog had her own test. The kitten wandered too close to her bowl once, curious and a little too brave. My dog stiffened. I didn't yell. I just stepped in, calm and firm, redirected, showed them both the boundary. The dog exhaled. The kitten backed up, then circled and approached again. Slower this time, like he'd learned a rule without being punished for it. Later that evening, they played for the first time. Not big, chaotic play, just a short, careful chase across the rug and a soft paw tap. My dog stopped herself. The kitten stopped himself. They stared at each other like, "Was that okay?" And then the kitten did something that made my throat tighten. He rolled onto his side, showing his belly for half a second before popping back up. A tiny flash of trust. I stood in my kitchen and thought, this isn't just about saving a cat anymore. It's about me learning how not to walk away the second things get complicated. Not from him, not from my own life. Then my phone buzzed with a text from my supervisor. Need to talk. There's one option that could keep you on the schedule. I stared at the message, and the kitten hopped down from his shelf and trotted over like he knew. He put his paws on my sock and looked up at my face, waiting. I opened the text thread and my chest tightened because I could feel it. My answer wasn't just about work now. It was about whether this kitten's place in my life would be solid and legal and lasting, or whether everything would collapse right at the edge. I texted back, "When can we talk?" And my supervisor called within a minute. His voice was different from the day before. Still careful, still managerial, but less sharp. He said he'd reviewed the situation, the complaint, the fact that I'd blocked the area briefly, and that nothing actually happened. He didn't pretend he was doing me a favor. He framed it like a problem they needed to solve. "We get these calls more than people think," he said. Animals in utility spaces, under grates, in pump rooms. Folks either ignore it or they make it up as they go. Neither is good. He offered a new arrangement. I'd still take the write-up, but I could stay on schedule if I completed a short training the department runs, how to secure an area, who to call, how to document it. After that, I'd be the go-to contact for those kinds of calls. Not a hero. Just a clear process with a person attached to it, so the next kitten wouldn't have to rely on luck in one glove. I said yes before he finished the sentence. My throat felt tight, like I'd been holding something back for days. With that piece settled, the foster network steps didn't feel like walking on a rope anymore. I followed the process the way they laid it out. Checkups, vaccines, microchip, paperwork. Boring, official, steady. The kitten got steadier with it too. He still startled at door slams and jingling keys, but he stopped trying to vanish. Instead, he'd freeze, look for me, and then decide what to do next. A couple weeks later, the foster coordinator met me for the final decision point. She watched him move around the room, watched how he kept circling back to my legs, how he'd tap my shoe with one paw like a reminder. "He's attached to you," she said. Not dramatic, just honest. "But you need to say it out loud. Are you ready?" I looked down at him. His fur had fluffed out. His eyes didn't have that drained, faraway look anymore. There was still caution in him, but now it came with a question, like he believed answers existed. For the first time, I didn't hide behind the word temporary. I didn't make it smaller to protect myself. "Yes," I said. "I'm ready." At home, he did something I didn't expect. He ignored the fancy little bed I'd bought and chose the spot by the front door instead. Not right in the middle, just off to the side where he could feel the house breathe, like he was marking the border between outside and inside, like he was closing a chapter with his own body. My dog lowered herself beside him, turned her back to the room, and became a quiet wall. Not possessive, protective. And standing there, watching them, I understood something I'd missed for a long time. Sometimes rescue isn't a big dramatic act. Sometimes it's the moment you stop backing away. From responsibility, from love. From the messy parts of being alive with someone else. He kept one habit, though. Every time I pulled on my work gloves by the door, he'd reach up with one paw and hook the edge, gentle but certain, like he was checking. "You still here?"